Well, hello. My name is Donna-Jean Breckenridge. I am one of the founding members of Ambleside Online's advisory. That means we are the ones who put together the curriculum. And some of you, I think, are using that curriculum, and your moms and dads have chosen that for you as the way you're going to do school. And so I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes today and chat with you about this very special day. So today is July 4th, 2025. Now, next year is going to be an even bigger day. So what do we call it? Obviously, 4th of July, but it's also Independence Day. And that means that America today is 249 years old. So next year, we're going to celebrate something called, see if I get this right, the semi-quincentennial. I think that's right. You can tell me in the notes if I've said it wrong. And that means 250 years. So it's going to be a very special day. So what I thought was between today and this time next year, maybe we can do a few chats like this, video chats, and we can talk a little bit about some of America's history from all throughout the Revolutionary War that brought us from colonies to states to a country to this country of ours. Yes, some of you may be using this. Yes, and that's Charlotte Mason's head popping out. Didn't mean to do that to her, Charlotte. A bookmark that Karen Glass got me, my friend Karen. So anyway, yeah, this country of ours, some of you use that, and you might use the original that Henrietta Marshall wrote. You can find that free online, and that's a good way to do things free. We're all about free. But you might have also used this, as I call it, annotated, expanded, and updated version. This is volume 2. There are 3 volumes. Right now I'm working on volume 4. Lord willing, that'll be out next year. But in this, we talk about all the different things that led us to this country, the founding of this country, and then what took place in this country. So I thought in some of these chats, we can refer to this and refer to some of the passages in it about the American Revolution. One other little thought that you might not realize, today is also a special day. Today is the anniversary of Ambleside Online. We first launched our curriculum, our website, on July 1st, 2001. That feels like a very long time ago. It was 24 years ago. And this time next year, June 4th through 6th, we're going to be having our 25th celebration. We're going to have it at the Gatlinburg Convention Center in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And little by little, we'll be talking more about that in all across social media and on our website. So I hope your moms and dads will be watching for that. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about this. I know, how did I get it, right? The Declaration of Independence. And this isn't the real thing. I'm sure you know that. The real thing is in Washington, D.C., in a place called the National Archives. I don't know if you've ever been to that. I got a chance to visit that several years ago. It's one of the amazing places you can see and visit in Washington, D.C. When you go in there, I mean, there's guards, it's very serious, but you're able to walk alongside this glass cover, and in it is the original signed, the original version of the Declaration of Independence. What's interesting, though, is it really looks nothing like this. You can maybe tell it is so faded, you can hardly see the writing. And if you go on the National Archives, I think it's nationalarchives.gov, but I'll put that in the notes below. You can see a picture of what it looks like now. It is so faded. And there's also a link there that tells you the history of the document and how it was preserved eventually. I don't think they realized at first how faded it was going to get. And so there's been the whole history there of how it's had been passed down over the years and how it's protected and guarded now. So one of the things that I realized, and you can just buy this sort of copy. You can tell a little bit by the size of it from next to me. You can buy these things, you can order them online or buy them like if you go to, say, a National Park Service for anything and they have like a gift shop. Well, I happened to look up today the actual size because this writing, I mean, it's so tiny. It's hard to even imagine. And I thought, how can it be this small? Well, I found out the original is, okay, look what this copy is like, you know, the original, what have I got here? Is 24.25 inches wide. That's the original. And for length, it's, there we go, 29.75 inches. So that's a big difference. You ever do that when you have picture study? Picture study in a Charlotte Mason education and with Ambleside Online is when you look at a painting and you just focus on it, just not say anything. It's really not very complicated. Sometimes some people make it way more complicated than it needs to be. It's literally just looking at a painting quietly for a certain amount of time. My kids or my grandkids would sort of nod at me like, yeah, I'm done. We turn it over and they would tell back what they saw. That's it, really. If anyone's doing more than that, take it from me. They're doing extra. Okay, that's all you have to do. But sometimes I've found it interesting to, when I'm studying a painting with my students, my kids, my grandkids, to find out its actual size. Because, you know, the print you have doesn't always tell the scope of whether it's a small painting, a very large one. I just find that interesting. But that's the size of the real document, way bigger than you would think. So today, 4th of July, we call it, that's the day we celebrate. Now, you may know some of the history of it, that it's not necessarily the day everyone thought it would be. As a matter of fact, I've got this in my notes on our chapter in this volume 2, where it says, on July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress officially declared its freedom from Great Britain by voting to approve Richard Henry Lee's resolution for independence. John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail on July 3rd. Now, depending on what year you are in AO, you very well may have read Witness to a Revolution, the story of Abigail Adams. It's a great book. I've read that now several times to some of my kids and alongside my grandchildren. And I love reading about her and about their lives. So he wrote to her on July 3rd, and this is what he said. The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch. By the way, how do you pronounce that? I think Americans mostly say epic and Brits say epoch, but whatever. In the history of America, I am apt to believe that it will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. It ought to be solemnized. Is that how you pronounce that? With pomp and parade, with shows, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other. Interesting, isn't it? When America did not go from, sea to shining sea yet. From this time forward, forevermore. In fact, it was the 4th of July, right? The date of the Declaration of Independence, not the resolution, that became our great anniversary festival. And so that's what we celebrate today. It's quite an amazing day to think about. I'm old enough to remember the bicentennial. So that was 1976. Let's see, how old was I then? I think I was like 18 going on 19. I think something like that, and that was a very exciting time to celebrate America's 200th birthday. But we're about to celebrate America's 250th. So happy birthday, America, this country of ours. But I want us to think a little bit about the signers. There were 56 men who signed that document. And signing that, was a very serious matter. I've got a book here called Lives of the Signers. It's a reprint of an 1848 original, it says. And listen to this. The signing of that instrument was a solemn act and required great firmness and patriotism in those who committed it. It was treason treason against the home government, yet perfect allegiance to the law of right. It subjected those who signed it to the danger of an ignominious death, yet it entitled them to the profound reverence of a disenthralled people. But neither firmness nor patriotism was wanting in that august assembly, and their own sound judgment and discretion, their own purity of purpose and integrity of conduct, were fortified and strengthened by the voice of the people in popular assemblies, embodied in written instruction for the guidance of their representatives. It took courage to sign that. It took quite a bit of courage to sign it. They were very much in the early days of the war. You remember things like Paul Revere's Ride, what we later came to call the Boston Tea Party. Those were celebrating now 250 years. So that was in 1775. And this was done in 1776. It was right in the middle of the war. You'll notice one name that's not on there. I remember long ago, what did I just, here we go. I remember years ago looking at it, when I was first learning about this kind of stuff. And I remember thinking, well, I wonder where, George Washington's name is. Because of course, we know about Thomas Jefferson, who wrote this, John Adams. And we started, you think about those very famous names. I thought, where's George Washington? Well, the father of our country, our very first president, was the commander of the army. He was fighting in the war at this time. So there was no guarantee of how this was going to turn out. This was an act of great courage by the 56 men who signed this. And we always these days kind of need to say this. These were not perfect men. They didn't live perfect lives. No one does. No one has. There's only one who lived a perfect life, and he was the God man, all man, Jesus Christ. But these men were brave, and they were bold, and they were willing. Of course, we often talk about John Hancock's signature, right? His was the very first signature, and it was bold and large. And many say he did that to make sure King George saw it. He was not embarrassed and not ashamed to sign this document. A lot of what's on this document, have you ever sorry, I didn't turn off my phone. There you go. Have you ever read the Declaration of Independence? It's an interesting thought that these documents are so important to our founding, Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, the Bill of Rights. These are what we call our founding documents, and it's really important that we read them. One funny little note about the handwriting on it. I told you, of course, this is so tiny, which makes it even harder to read, but the bolder parts, the very beginning, I don't know if you can see that. You can see that very first word, when, in the course. I don't know if it'll come across backwards on there or not, but you can look at it in other facsimiles. First of all, think about the first line. I once played a game with someone where they gave the first line of famous works of literature. I've tried to do that like in the car sometimes with someone. It annoys people. And it's also annoying to me because I can only think of a few of them. But the most famous one, in the beginning. That's the Bible, right? That one's easy to remember. Here's another one. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Do you know that? You know which one that starts? I should leave it and let you guess, and you can put that in the comments if you know that. Here's another one that starts it is a truth universally acknowledged. That's the beginning of the sentence. Do you know what book that begins? Well, anyway, I have on a t-shirt. You can't really see it, but it's got 76. But across it, it's got We the People. And it's kind of funny to me because the t-shirt has got 76, but We the People. Well, that's not what was written in 1776. We the People is the beginning of the Constitution. But the beginning of the Declaration of Independence has a very unique thing that it says. Let me read a little of this to you. It actually starts the unanimous declaration, and that's this top part, right? This we can see. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Do you know how bold that first phrase is? These had been colonies. Colonies belong to another country. But by calling themselves the United States, the United States of America, right in that first sort of introduction, they were declaring who they were as separate. And then it says this, and maybe you've even learned this phrase or heard this phrase. I know it partly, but I want to be sure I get it exactly right. When in the course of human events, that's quite a phrase, isn't it? When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And then we get to the most amazing part of all. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And then as you go through this, you can see it on my phone. I'll just kind of give you a sense of how long it is. Probably too, you can't really see that. But if you look up the text of the Declaration, what they do is they start to go through the different things, their grievances, if you will, to Great Britain. And then it says this at the very bottom: we, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the supreme judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. There you go. Now you know. I cry when I read stuff like this. My kids would just sit in the back and go, back of a car, go, there she goes. We bought a book one time. I think it was called A is for America. And I'm reading this to them and they're just going, she's going to cry. There you go. Yes, I cry at this. It's important. It's really important to take a minute and acknowledge that we are the one country on earth that recognize, the first country to recognize that our rights come from God, not from government. This nation was put together for this cause and for this reason. And we've continued to work on this over the years. At the very back of this country of ours, here's what I put on it. Let's see. I've talked about this country, and I thought it was written on the back. There you go. It's not quite on the back, but it's on here. It's not a perfect country, right? But our goal is to encourage those who are Americans, whether you were born here or you came here from another country, to keep the flag flying over a people free and brave and true. May it ever be so. It's not the perfect country, but I still believe it's the best and finest country on earth. And what I'm hoping is that you'll kind of come along with me during this year, during this semi-quincentennial, and let's talk about some of the different chapters in this country of ours, some of the different events that took place, and maybe learn a little bit more about it together. Thanks for spending some of this day, 4th of July, with me. I hope you have a fabulous time with your family, and I hope you'll take a minute to just remember the great country we've been given, the courage of the lives of these signers, and the gift of America. Happy Independence Day.